All right. Um, I would like to welcome you. Yadira Dockstader is a Mexican-American interdisciplinary artist, curator, and researcher who works through collaboration to negate pauses in medical and scientific research. Her work explores the stresses and slippages within a dematerializing world. Her performances, video, sound, and installation works operate as an alternative to disseminating scientific generated data, facts, stats, and numbers through her process. This process and collaboration brings together medical and scientific communities with the aim of showing and affecting how the public gain access to important information or misinformation. So, welcome and thank you very much. So, the format of this talk is going to be around 45 minutes, and then we'll have time for 15 minutes of question and answer. Thank you so much, and please take over.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you to the Center for Medical Humanities for having me today. I'm excited to share about my research and the way that it has been intersecting with a lot of the themes in my work and conceptually within the materials that I'm using out in my work. I'm excited to present But Nothing Fatal on toxicology and prognosis. I want to kind of like start off by giving a little bit of a background about myself because I think that in thinking of this project as a whole or this presentation being an in progress kind of point in my work, I think that it's important to kind of reflect on some kind of biographical aspects of my inspiration and what has been a catalyst for making this work and why I've been so interested in toxicology and these ideas surrounding our determinants of health. And so, just starting off with this cover and title, some of the research that I was able to conduct this past summer through the Medical Humanities Grant, which I'm really grateful for receiving, took me to Boston, where I was able to go to the Women's Health Library at the Harvard Radcliffe Library, where I encountered archives, a very specific archive that had medical research or medical diagnosis paperwork for a specific patient. And within the documents, there was a repeated kind of phrase, but nothing fatal, which just kept kind of reoccurring or coming up in this archive. And I pulled a lot from that specific archive, which I can get into a little bit further, but that was kind of like the beginning point of thinking about my second year exhibition, which is the exhibition or exhibition works, which I'll be showing today, or a few of them that were installed in the University Art Gallery here at UCI for our second year show titled Limited Hang. And so on toxicology and prognosis, I want to start off again, like I mentioned, maybe a little bit biographically about what I've been thinking about and how I arrived to this place of thinking about my work and how I can maybe negate these pauses in research and or like why this is important to me. So I grew up in Wilmington, California, which is located by the port. It is the highest concentration of oil. There's the highest concentration of oil refineries in California. Um, there have been many studies conducted there that, show a significant like rate for cancer, chronic illness, asthma, um, between just the soil and the air quality. There's lots of things that have, that are, I suppose, contaminants within this very specific area. And on the left, there's the home I grew up in. This is like a Google image of it that I found from 2017. And the home is located, I would say, a mile. from this refinery. And so I was very familiar with the fact that we were surrounded by refineries. I did grow up with several health challenges. And, being young, I never really thought about what was around me and or that that I was in this harmful kind of environment that's unseemingly harmful because, for me, I suppose there was days where it's as cloudy as it is in that image, but it perhaps is not something that is natural. It's perhaps coming from the refinery, and that's smoke from the distance there that is typical of this area and growing up in this city. And so yeah, this intense air pollution and sulfur and toxic emissions. And so I drove by this refinery many times, throughout my childhood and adolescence. And I recently just started returning back or thinking about it as I visit my mom or come home. I think a lot about the health disparities and or this the many lawsuits that involve residents that are trying to fight against what is happening there with the rates of pollution and or like just the way that the properties are situated on land where you don't own underneath your property because there's pipes or there's things associated that related back to the refinery, which, make the circumstance just really difficult because there is no other, option in thinking about many of these neighbors or people that I've known that grew up here to move. And so, yeah, just thinking about my upbringing here in Wilmington, and I'm actually going to return to this, but I did grow up, with some health challenges and later on, recently in thinking about how sharing can be maybe a catalyst for people to understand health experiences. Um, I have, autoimmune disease that is a pretty rare autoimmune disease that, is hard to pinpoint to anything specifically. But I guess one of my big questions has been like, genetics versus like environmental kind of like an environmental disposition to illness and how like this is like increasing within our communities and specifically in communities like Wilmington. And so these are just personal photographs of things of a series of photographs that I was taking years ago and from another body of work that I was making that was based on very biographical kind of experience of chronic illness, but through the pandemic. And so for my undergraduate research at UC Riverside, this was kind of a big part of it is this revealing of like my own experience with chronic illness and specifically how the vaccines and COVID-19 was affecting me and or my treatments and or receiving them or access to them because it was difficult, of course, to go into any hospital and or doctor's office. And so that's been kind of something I think about a lot, my upbringing, where I grew up in, kind of what I'm around. And so I moved to the San Bernardino Inland Empire in about 2014 from the port from Wilmington to Long Beach to San Bernardino. And I was thinking a lot about the fire that happened initially in 2004, the line fire before the LA Eaton Palisade fire. Um, the fires were, creating these clouds that, were affecting all of the air quality in the Inland Empire and also affecting family members that live in the San Bernardino Mountains. On the right is an image of running springs and the red substance that you see all over the town. This is like a very popular kind of area in Running Springs where all the shops are located. They're all covered with something called Check, which is like a retardant for fires to, of course, protect the businesses and save them. And it can also be, really bad for the environment and bad. But so it's like this outweighing of bad for our health, but it's like this outweighing like, that we're protecting homes and are protecting people or these areas from the fires, but then there's kind of like this residue that it remains, present. And so just thinking a lot about these very personal pictures, the one on the right from a family member, and then the left side is a photograph I took from my dashboard during those that initial like the line fire, and thinking about air quality as I began kind of research here at UCI. And I started to then kind of unpack like how are we testing air quality, and or like how are researchers approaching this, and where can I get information as someone who lives in this area? And at the time I was also commuting to Irvine, and I'm thinking a lot about yeah, what are we using and how are we testing our environment? And that's when I met researchers within a Latino health paradox class, and also met a few people from Caltech and UCLA that started to do testing on site at the locations, where the Palisades and Eaton fires occurred, specifically in Pasadena. I found out that the a way to test, or a biomarker of our environment, is through using honey, like from wildflower honey combs throughout the area. And so the concept is that, of course, the worker bee, the honeybee, continues to pollinate even after like fallout or some, devastating kind of occurrence. They continue to collect. And within this collecting, they're also, of course, affected by these toxins, but the way that they're bringing that back into the honey is like kind of storing this information or data about what is around us. And so I found that so interesting that the first things that it's done is like, the testing of these honeycombs. And so I was able to work with the researchers in the sense that they were going to, after using the honey, they were going to sometimes they store the honey for future testing, but in this instance, we were able to collaborate so I can make work surrounding this concept. And I was thinking about ways in which I can kind of speak to all of this and use the honey in a way that it reveals this information. And so one of the first pieces that I created for this body of work, I titled Heavy Metal Genotoxic. It was, the big component or medium that I used is the honey that they had already filtered and tested around these sites. I thought that it was important to use the honey again to like kind of reveal the levels of arsenic, lead, the phosphocheck that I mentioned. There's chromium and even microplastics that are picked up just from the environments. This was all kind of this sculpture kind of came to fruition from thinking of that, but also thinking about these irrigation bags that are used in farmlands. And I staged this in one of our theaters here at UC Irvine. And the work is, in a sense, well, it speaks to this idea of like time and kind of these effects that are, these things that are affecting us. And so I have a video that I would like to kind of, let's see, present here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we can all see that. Let me make this. I'm gonna go ahead and so basically, let me go ahead and stop that. Just a second here to go back. And so with the work, I was thinking a lot about the way that the volume of the bag with the honey basically is transferred into this other vessel or tray. It is time-based and performing just like the honeybee works or performs. There's this relationship with that and the stage. A stage that I was using for a previous performance was used as a plinth. And so there is like this performative kind of aspect to the work where I have to, and care where I have to change the bags and actually interact with this material in a safe manner and like place the tray or move the tray and then, bring it back into the gallery space. And um, within that, I think it's like the sculpture's performing and or enacting kind of like surrogate or this vessel transferring this fluid into this other kind of vessel and the transference of that within time. Just be a second here to try and get back to our presentation. Sorry about that. If you can see the screen, I'm going to try and get us back to the presentation. Are you able to see the next slide, Kelly? Let's see if we can.
Not yet.
Okay, just another second here to. I'm gonna have to stop for a second and reshare. I just need another second here to get back onto the presentation.
Take
All
your time.
right.
It's okay. Take your time.
It logs out when we do video, so I'm gonna go ahead and just reshare. That's fine. Okay. So I want to move on. Can everyone see the screen? We're now on the glass instruments here. Okay.
No, it's just all we can see is you right now.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully we could see the screen now. Can you
Got
see
it.
the screen? Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. So I began to think about well, I was thinking about the honey and the toxins within that, and that led me to start to think about, well, what about water and soil and, different areas that are contaminated, but also within this time, I was thinking about like the pauses in research, and I'm having these conversations with Dr. Allen, these researchers from Caltech, who are telling me that, they're conducting testing, but like a lot of things have changed or shifted. And so perhaps the levels of toxicity are changing to, rates that are to them perhaps considered unsafe. And so it's very complex. I think it's a complex time hearing different researchers struggle with these ideas of what's toxic, what's not, and also like how we as the public, like how can you approach like testing what's safe, what's around you. And I started to think about just testing water because they mentioned that the tap water was something that was like really contaminated, not just from the pipes, but the effects of, the arsenic and the different contaminants that were around after the fire that are still present. And so I was working with glass, creating this series of glass instruments, blowing glass and you know, essentially making these like vessels that um, hold water from different it's tap water from different cities. So Compton, Los Angeles, Long Beach, Irvine, San Bernardino, Redlands, and Pasadena. There's a few other cities, and each vessel has a different rate of you know, information or data about the water, and they are each dated. So there's that along with kind of these numbers, which we've, you know, along with my own testing and the research conducted with Caltech, we came to the, you know, conclusion that they were, you know, for the most part, all of them had levels that were high in arsenic and neonics and all these other, you know, PFAs and like contaminants. And so um, I thought that this was kind of like this sculpture could act as like something that is housing this information and or research. Like there's still this possibility maybe to like re-access it and retest. But I was also thinking about what's weaponized and this idea of this syringe-like instrument or arrow, and thinking of like hunting or sustenance and life, and ideas surrounding water being something, of course, that is necessary, and the translucency of it, again, being unassumingly toxic, something that, you know, you wouldn't think has, you know, a contaminant in it, but maybe we do think about it. But within the work, I guess, because it's translucent, I like that idea. And so the show, for the most part, it is a bit difficult to see the water in each vessel, but each one contains you know, water and microplastic beads. This is an image of the process I was learning to work with glass. So this is definitely a new medium for me. And I was learning with somebody in the community that has been working with glass for a long time. And so we have been collaborating. I've been learning to make, or I created all the instruments that were part of the show, but the process in itself was really fun. And working out of Compton, one of the first vessels that had the water that we tested was from Compton. And I was just thinking a lot about also just like health disparities there, and you know, the lack of you know, perhaps testing that is going on within even like just this neighborhood, getting the samples from the tap water and finding out that, you know, each one was high in these, you know, contaminants was concerning, but also made me feel empowered to continue to make work surrounding this, and you know, investigating further, and perhaps continuing to capture water and or work with it in a different way that still speaks to this. And so kind of moving along with other work. This is a quick, well, this is the same work, the vessels, but a quick video here hopefully doesn't take me out of the presentation. But if we watch the video just a few minutes, we can see the microplastics that are embedded. And so let me go back here. Just another minute to get back. And so I was thinking a lot about other ways that I can test, I guess, other surfaces or areas within LA. And I started to test buildings, the soot on buildings in downtown. And sorry about that. I had to log out. There's no other way for me to get back into the slide. So I'm gonna just show you a few shots here. of the series of works, but this shot has the windows or these this idea surrounding windows in downtown. These illuminated glass panels each have a vector image or like this image. I photographed the grime off the windows in downtown from specific locations and then had it laser etched on the surface and then treated back with the same soot that's been tested. And so within the material list, there's like a reveal again of like what these contaminants are, but it's also bringing them into the gallery in this way where we would interact with these windows and our surfaces around our home from day to day and not think anything of it. And so I found that that was important to bring into like the gallery space and into the show. Even if it was very minor, I thought that, just the fact that these are also testing positive for these high, these arsenic, high rates of like contaminants. I thought that that was something that, we could have discourse about within the show and have a relationship to these glass vessels that I was also presenting. So it's like this combination of the testing of water, the testing of like soil and the soot that's like now adhered itself to these windows. And relating back again to, I guess, thinking about my process of revealing like data and revealing like potential things that are determining our health and harm and or harming us. And so another kind of video that I'll show here in a second. I actually want to talk about this first. I also did an installation with some of the tests that I was able to use for the other samples. So soil tests and water tests that were presented on the wall of the gallery on the edge of that same image that you see that I just shared a few minutes ago had the test strips adhered to the wall that are revealing the information, but they're also mixed in with other tests like pregnancy tests and glucose tests. And I was thinking a lot about like pregnancy outcomes and, again, health outcomes, like what can cause chronic illness and or, these the effects of the contaminants on perhaps like, future generations and thinking that way. And just skipped, it's kind of a brief video. And so I'm coming back to this image of Wilmington or in thinking about like the conclusion of this show and this series of work for me has been to kind of go back into researching perhaps ways in which my work can operate, perhaps as a book and or literature that can write along with the work. I think that it is really rich in information that can be used for future researchers. So in thinking about the pauses and thinking about ways in which like the public can um, be informed about what is happening, I think is really important. And so that's something that I'm seeking is like consistency and finding out like what's factual within data that is being revealed and how this is being manipulated. So if you know EPA tests were a certain percentage, like if things have shifted or if like there's different resources to test, I'm curious to know and or to continue to collaborate with researchers that are, having issues with this and in thinking about my work or being an artist, and how I can disseminate this information, even if it isn't in the traditional format, I think that it's important to still inform the public that this is what these findings were from these brief kind of interactions or studies that I've been doing actually for the last year. And yeah, thinking about my thesis and where some of my research can go, and thinking of like somatic and bio surveillance and other aspects of data collecting. So I've been thinking a lot about loop recorders against surveillance of the body and or where this data goes and how it's being used. And that's kind of where I am, is like still just thinking about ways which I can continue to do the research and or collect the data and collaborate. But I do, yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming today. I do want to leave time for questions. I know I might be ending a bit early. I want to go back to, I can go back to some of the other works, but if anyone has any questions, I appreciate everyone's time today coming to check in, to check out the presentation. And thank you so much, Kelly and Ekwa.
Thank you as well. That was a really interesting presentation. And if people have questions, please feel free to just
Mhm.
um, unmute yourself.
So I guess I'll start with a question and thank you so much for sharing your interdisciplinary work. And, as being in the arts too, I always find it fascinating that, the power of what you have learned and where you've gone in space as an artist, right? What are the next steps with this work? Because you're getting ready to graduate, right? So what are you going to do next?
Well, I think that I'm thinking a lot about the way that the actual the writing, like creating something that's accessible, perhaps in not necessarily a book form, but there's ways where the visual components of like the actual tests can be used visually to reveal, and then have some of that work and actually include these researchers within that book, credited in that way, as opposed to like the work I'm creating, of course, is so creative in the sense I'm doing the glass blowing and then putting the water in, and they tested it, but there's no space where that is meeting together that's visual. But I think within a book form, that can exist. And so that's something exciting. And it's not something that necessarily needs to happen now through grad school, which is exciting too, because I'm thinking about it almost as like a longitudinal kind of thing, a project for myself. But I think this did open up this idea of what is factual and what is not, but also what are we using to measure? And like I feel that there is this distrust, about the water, for example, and hearing researchers be concerned themselves about the tests they're using is concerning me. And so it's something that I think I feel like within the public health sphere, like we don't like I feel like I want to empower people to kind of look into this on their own and learn. And I don't come from being a researcher in that context, but I definitely have had to learn how to navigate these things, being someone who's chronically ill and has to navigate the medical, that sphere of like that experience. And so, yeah, I'm thinking about having a, a book or writing or like maybe these presentations that can perhaps empower people. So more community driven, like perhaps this is more in a format so that I can, go back to Wilmington and or these communities and like, engage within that space creatively. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could even see it being like a short film or, what I mean, short,
Right.
like,
Right.
something of that sort to tell the whole story. No, thank you so much. Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm
Yeah.
curious, Yadira, I think you kind of answered it, but if you want to expand more like on, how you were able to engage with researchers and essentially digest all this info, all this knowledge to a more larger community, at least somewhere in the near future. But I'm kind of curious, like visually and um I guess tangibly, like what's your vision?
Yeah, so to answer the first part of the question, like how did I engage with the researchers? I was asked this recently by someone, like how did you just, get in touch with these researchers? And I suppose one aspect is like being a UC student. I suppose I just reached out to that department and
Mhm.
reached out to people that were willing to just write to me and or are willing to have you email them and ask questions. And I think it has been really easy to go to other UCs and do this process, but also one of the researchers that I was able to work with was through like a NPR interview, and I just emailed
Yeah.
him. He responded, and so I think there is like there are a lot of researchers that want to work in a creative manner to just like reveal and or find ways to allow the public to become aware of
Yeah.
what's going on. And so that happened kind of for me, it felt very organic because of the, being in this institution and having that access. But I feel that most people, if you contact them, would want to perhaps sit with you and discuss their research and or collaborate. But the second part, yeah, about visually, where it's going, if I understand that correctly, I think that,
Mm.
yeah, the work kind of is so visual when you walk into a gallery, and perhaps not everyone picks up a materials list to understand what's in the work, and I understand that, but I think there's these two things happening, and perhaps there's one where it's the feeling that you're getting from, this I suppose, sterile space that I created in the installation of the work, and the translucency and this idea that there's nothing there or withholding that is happening of information. You can't see the glass panel on the top of the wall because of course it's so high up you can't get close to the work or can't interact with it closely. But I think the work is also going to exist for me as someone who's been a curator and writer. I think that there's two different kind of things that can happen where I can break this one exhibition and kind of amplify it in this other way through perhaps writing and this other visual kind of component.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel.
Yeah, any other questions? That was lovely. This is my favorite part of my job in this
Thank
spec.
you.
We've had such amazing work being done. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions from the group? All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And thank you so much for your hard work. And I look forward to seeing more of your work here at UCI and outside of UCI. So appreciate your time and thank you all. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Hi, Simon.
Oh, someone wants to be admitted. Okay.